Hello, and welcome to episode 170 of Prog Review. And if you've been following, I'm doing this kind of thingy-majig. I don't know what this is. Does anybody know what this is? Answers on a postcard, please, to the usual address. I'm doing this thing about concept albums. I don't know why. It seemed like a good idea at the time. But here we are. And today, if you are too thick to read the description, I'm talking about SF Sorrow by The Pretty Things. Yes. And yeah, I mean, so what can we say? I mean, The Pretty Things. It was recorded during the years 1967 and 68, yes, that far back, at Abbey Road Studios, and they used the production talents of Norman Smith, who also worked with Pink Floyd on their early recordings, Piper Gates of Dawn and the various singles they put out, and it was eventually released in December 1968, so there's a concept album. It puts it right at the front. Now, the general consensus of opinion is that this album, it's indeed a concept album. Is it also an example of something that some call a rock opera? Not a rock lobster, no, a rock opera. Now, this is where we get into strange waters, strange, murky waters. I mean, what is the difference between a rock opera and a concept album? I don't know, not a lot, I should imagine. And so we go back to my original definition of what a concept album is. I mean, some are thematic and some are narrative, and the rock opera tends to favour the latter, with a fairly linear story being told through the medium of song, on the album. Now, the difference between SF Sorrow and some rock operas or concept albums, or whatever you want to call them, is that this album did have actually a bit of narrative printed in between the lyrics. There was bits of story between the lyrics. So it spelt the story out to the reader/listener, so that they didn't get too lost in trying to make sense of all the structural connections that the lyrics were making, because it can be hard to tell a story by song. And when the band did actually try and play this album live, they enlisted the talents of Mr. Arthur Brown to read out the story in between songs. Now, I still haven't forgiven him. For that album, Anyway, they also link between Arthur Brown, another rock opera, Tommy. Arthur Brown is in Tommy. Keep your eyes out for him. The movie, not the album. So, what is it about? Well, it's about the title character. It's a simple story. SF Sorry is the title character, and it looks at the various narrative motifs that we get from the various concept albums that have come since. The lead character is Sebastian F. Sorrow, and he's born into the world. He goes to work. He becomes disenfranchised by work. He falls in love. He goes to war, survives the war, sees his love burned to death in a horrific ballooning accident, slips into a depression, meets the mysterious Baron Saturday, who steals his eyes and leads him on a trippy journey into the underworld, which culminates with Sorrow being swallowed by his own face and then presented with various truths of life. And it's a journey that leaves him broken spiritually, and he cuts himself off from the rest of the world, building a kind of wall, and it makes him the loneliest man in the world. So it's fairly standard stuff then. Dog barks. But already, just looking over the story, you can see it's template for other concepts that followed. Many feature tales of epic journeys of self-discovery or events that break the central character. And so one album, The Pretty Things, pretty much define what a concept album should be. What elements should be there if you want it to be a nice pithy story. I said pithy, alright? And there's also much debate whether or not the album had any influence on Pete Townshend and The Who's Tommy album that was actually released a year later in 1969. Townsend has said, "Oh no." He turned into Frank Howard. He went, "Oh no, missus, oh no, nay, thrice nay." He went. He never did it like that. But if you listen to the record, you there are a few clues, and there are many. He's denied it, and there are many have actually said, "Oh no." If you listen, Townsend did hear this album, and even the Pretty Things themselves have actually said that Townsend was directly influenced. And if you hear the opening riff to "Old Man Going," a track off the album, obviously, you can hear instantly the similarities between that and the strummed chords so familiar on Pinball Wizard. The similarity is uncanny. Yes. Now, the music on the record itself is not really progressive. It's very much a product of its time, and by that I mean it features all the production methods and mixing tricks one comes to expect from a record that was recorded and produced at the tail end of the 1960s. Instruments are hard panned left and right. There's no cohesion in the actual mix. Sound effects are to a minimum, and it sounds very, very 1960s. It's quite a flat thing. Now, this doesn't actually detract from the album. It actually gives it some charm when you realise that the band also implement the mellotron. The mellotron on it, and there's some other electronic tone generators they use. So they're pushing a little bit. They're pushing forward somewhat. Now I'm going to own up and plead ignorance to this record up until I bought it recently. I mean, I wasn't totally ignorant. I was aware of its presence in the pantheon of prog, etc. But I never really got around to buying a copy of the album. Pretty Things were not really on my radar, and so I've got an account on eMusic, and I downloaded. I bought a copy, downloaded it off eMusic, but it was pretty useless because I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. So I bought the 2010 reissue, which has the story restored in between the lyrics, and things made a bit more sense. Obviously, because you're only getting half the story otherwise. Now, normally this music wouldn't be my particular cup of Earl Grey. This is hippy dippy 60s nonsense, and those kind of albums are a little bit of a far stretch for me, especially with this kind of hokey production. However, SF Sorrow has a lot of character to it, and the band do a great job selling story, and it's a bit like The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway by Genesis. It becomes quite compelling to understand what this is all about. I've listened to it quite a few times. It's become quite a fave of mine. And the album is a great forerunner to those subsequent concept albums. It's the journey of self-discovery we see in Tommy and the Lamb, and the character who finds himself destroyed by events and builds a psychological wall around himself. A theme that we see presented or hear presented. See the film, hear the album on Pink Floyd's The Wall. So it's a forerunner, Brilliant. So despite some of the throwback sounds that you endure listening to the record, it is quite cutting edge in that respect, and it's a shame that things didn't go differently for the Pretty Things, and their management didn't work harder to make this album a little bit more of a success. Because who knows, maybe Ken Russell would have made a film of this rather than Tommy, perhaps. Who knows? An alternative dimension that may have happened. Now, the standout tracks are Bracelets of Fingers, Baron's Saturday, love that one, Trust, excellent, and The Loneliest Person. The Loneliest Person reminds me of the of the Flight of the Conchords for some reason. I don't know. Now, in terms of a rating, this album is giving me a lot to think about. Indeed, some of the music I don't really like it because of the appalling 60s production, but it's got a lot of charm. It really has, and it's the charm that won me over. So, I was thinking of giving this a healthy 4 Private Sorrows out of 5, and then I actually sat down and thought, no, this is actually quite a trailblazing and pioneering record. And I thought, no, by Jiminy, I can't castrate it by 1 point. No, Its legacy needs to be reinforced by the mighty Prog review. And so, I give this an upgrade. Dum, ping, and it now receives a fantastic 5 Baron Saturdays out of 5. Yes, that's 5 Baron Saturdays out of 5. Oh yes, indeedy. Now you must pick up the expanded edition because, well, it's a thing of great beauty. You also get some lovely liner notes and pictures and things. But there's also a DVD of the band performing the whole album live back in 1998. I think it was doing the anniversary. Take My Shoes and Socks Off. Was it the 20th anniversary? 30th? 4th? I don't know. And yeah, if you keep your eye out, keep your peepers open, you'll see a Mr. Gilmore from Pink Floyd out on the old plank spanking. Oh yes. So go on. Click the linky in the description. Go on, click on it and buy yourself a copy. This is Prog history, you know. This is Prog history. Yeah. So get on with it. My name's been Darren. I've been burbling on about SF Sorrow in my series about concept albums, and it's by The Pretty Things, and I really enjoyed it. Thanks for being a kind and patient and wonderful audience. There's only one more thing to say, and that is Prog on.